Go. There you go. Okay. 3. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Longside podcast. And it's a big one, okay? Today will be a juicy one. We've got some great guests on the way, and we've got a lot to talk about. I mean, I think this may be one of the most eventful weeks in Burnley's recent history, to say the very least. We've got some great topics today, going into the game that happened on Saturday, going into what may be a record-breaking night for the Clarets on Tuesday night, and also today, thankfully, before we went live, the news of some big debt, finances, all that kind of boring stuff that you may not really care about, or you do, have to find out. We'll go all into it. So let's introduce what may have happened. Maybe you're not in the know, or maybe you need to be recapped in terms of what has happened today. A tweet today by Kieran Maguire, who is one of the most knowledgeable and respected people in the scene in terms of football and the terms of football financing with football teams. He put out a tweet earlier today saying that Burnley repay money borrowed by MSD Holdings, and that it states in a screenshot, satisfaction of charge in full on the 8th of February, which was 5 days ago. This was formed from a debt that was created back in the 31st of December 2020, which of course came from the ALK takeover. And some other little details before we get into the topic of debate with our guests. We've got ourselves here. I want to recap you a headline from the Daily Mirror that I still keep in my heart to this day, that when anything great, anything fantastic happens to the Clarets, I can always use this and remind ourselves how bad we were told it was meant to be. Headline here by Daily Mail. Back in May, when we got relegated, 9 players out of contract, no manager, a £65 million debt to repay, and a fire sale of players. Burnley's Premier League hangover could last for years and see them headed straight down for League One, just like Sunderland, which is an incredible thing to read, considering with hindsight what we know now. And to give a bit of information that I think went under the radar a bit, that half of the debt was actually repaid back in September, actually, that we indeed got told by many accounts at the time that didn't get publicized as much, saying that Burnley paid 32.3 million in the summer at the end of the window, repaying half of the loan in 3 separate payments of £50 million, £5 million, and 12.3. So we were already pretty much halfway through the loan back in September. Now, of course, we'll go into exactly how this is paid because we don't fully know, and we can go into how we perceive it. But of course, let's introduce the fantastic people on board here, which of course, we got ourselves the fantastic Matt from the Manchester Clarets Supporters group. How you doing, my friend?
Hey Liam, yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic, especially after today's news. And of course, not just him alone, Danny Ward. How you doing, my friend?
Hi, yeah, very well, thank you.
Well, it's going to be a great chat today because there's a lot to go through here. So I'll go to Matt first. Just quite broad question. How do you feel about the news that came out today?
I think on the surface it's really positive. I don't have a degree in finance or anything like that, so I think the details will need to be firmed up. Obviously, Kieran Maguire is very respected, so trust what he says is correct. But and it's come from company's house as well, so there's no question legitimacy. I guess the details of how that kind of payment, I suppose, has been made or the loan has been settled are interesting because could well be that we've done some refinancing. I think most clubs, well run and not so well run, will have some kind of loan in place that they're usually repaying just for cash flow reasons. So until we get the details, I'm trying not to get too excited, but it's very positive, and I think it's great to see that we're addressing the loan at this early stage now that we've got promotion all but secured. So hard to not be positive about it, really.
Of course, that's a great little insight right there. Danny, do you share the same opinion?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think it's so nice to see, as you mentioned before, that change in the narrative from what we had in the summer, which was just seems to be doom and gloom, and that we were going to slip right down the leagues. But to have that positive news come out is amazing, and I think it sets us up really nicely for getting promoted to the Premier League when we'll obviously have that money come in as well. So it's great. It's great to hear.
So, in terms of how it is fully paid, we don't fully know yet, and I think it will be kind of come out in a wash quite soon in terms of how it is. If it is refinancing, maybe another loan is indeed being paid off to replace that, but it is with maybe improvements of repayment terms or interest rates. A lot of people were quite concerned back in June for quite fair reasons in terms of the ownership of the club, in terms of where the club could be going. And I'll go to Danny for this one. The job that Alan Pace has done, of course, with hindsight, and it's a wonderful thing in terms of the where we are right now, the success in the pitch, the transfer policy, how the club is perceived to the entire world, even little minuscule things like how we are perceived on social media because of our transfer signings, our announcements are seemingly loved by everyone. How good of a job do you think Alan Pace has done?
Yeah, I'm very impressed with what he's done. I mean, it's been a bit of a drastic transformation when you think about what we were like before. Obviously, the old ownership was completely different. Even things like the electronic boards around the side of the ground, things like that. We've seen huge changes over the past 12 months. I think he's made a big impression on the community as well. I mean, I've seen him walking around outside the ground a couple of times, and he seems to just want to be involved with the fans, which is brilliant. And I don't think we've had that before. So it makes everything feel really positive.
Matt, do you share that same opinion as well with Alan Pace? And that is a great also, bit to add into there that, yeah, I'm not too aware of too many chairmen that just wander around the community and just speak to everyone when possible. And even little other like sort of events, like I remember for the E-Premier League, it was just a FIFA event, and that he didn't just show up at Starting Day and was there to meet all the competitors, just young kids who, of course, would find it as a massive, moment to meet a chairman of a football club. But he also came down to Burnley College and had interviews with the club, students at Burnley College, just having interviews and helping them with the studies, in terms of their coursework. And how do you perceive Alan Pace?
I think when he came to the club, it was very much a big change, wasn't it? We're so used to the local owners. He did, for me, he was making all the right noises, moving to the area, and just generally ingratiating himself with the area as well and the fans. But I think with the sacking of Daesh, the relegation, which I certainly wouldn't put at his feet. Um, it was a little, I would say I was probably 50-50. And I think with any leverage buyouts, they always feel a little bit kind of strange and not the right way to go about it. There's been plenty of times this happened and it's not ended very well. But to be honest, I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt with, as Danny said, the things he'd been doing in the community were definitely making the right noises. He could easily have just never been to Burnley and kind of forgotten about it if it was an investment. So I think given what's happened, especially this season, All the decisions we've made have been great, and I think definitely off the field it feels like a much better run club, more like 2023 than 2003. Whether it's like you said, Danny, the little things like the advertising or like the club shop being quite a bit better, the beer that you can get in the ground, all those little things that I'm sure he's had some kind of involvement in, does feel like we're moving forward after probably, despite being very good on the field, maybe off the field we've been quite stagnant for a while. So definitely a thumbs up from me so far.
Yeah, and that is also important to highlight, that it is the little things like ad boardings around the ground and outside and inside as well, to make it look a bit more shiny, a bit more appealing, because every single fan that I know that supports a team in the Championship, if it's Preston last week, if it's West Brom fans came to Turf the other week as well, across the entire season, when they come to Turf and they've perhaps maybe been there before in the past, back in Premier League years, 5-10 years ago, and they come to the ground now, they always have fantastic new experiences. They always say about how good the club looks now, and they compare and contrast the state of their own club and compare it to what Burnley seems to look like in the transition of what we used to be in such a short space of time. And they honestly look like they're in awe of what has happened here. And I want to speak about, because we are speaking about ownership here, of our previous ownership. With the dust now settled in terms of us going down, and the lack of investment was clear as day to see, what do we now think about our old ownership in terms of what were they okay, like their issues that clearly maybe we outgrew them as a football club? Do you share that same feeling?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they got us as far as they could, and it got to a stage where they needed to reinvest significantly in the squad. But I think they just left it far too long to do that. Too many transfer windows went by when we were saying we need to be bringing some new players in, younger players, and it just wasn't happening. But I think it got to the stage where we needed that change, just to move forward a bit more positively.
And Matt, as well, with Garlic gone, would you put our relegation down to him?
I think, in all honesty, he has to bear some of the responsibility. I don't think it was like willful negligence. I don't think he purposely mismanaged the club. Plenty of clubs have had that. I think he had the best interests, but perhaps we outgrew him is probably the best way of describing it. And I think all of those transfer windows of not investing in the players, despite losing players and having the money to spend, seemingly definitely caught up with us. And I think, as grim as it was last season, I said this before, we've had a brilliant season this season. It was probably our time. We were probably one of the worst teams in the Premier League. It definitely could have gone either way this year. So I think although you give him more, just as much of the blame, you've kind of forgotten about him just with how well it's gone since. And, once you assume we make promotion this season, it'll probably just be a blip in what hopefully is another successful period for us.
I completely agree with that. As a comment in the chat by Saif saying, is the whole loan paid off or are we fully debt-free? I don't think many football clubs in the world are exactly debt-free. But what we do know is that this is sat debt to this sat company in MSD Holdings appears to be as what they quoted, satisfaction of charge in full. So the payment to them is back in full. Now, if that means that we have other debts, that we have other loans that we pay that, but with better rates, we don't fully know yet. However, it looks like it's a good sign. Like, do you two agree that considering also the repayment back in September and now this new information coming out, it looks like the club is preparing for the Premier League next year? Don't you agree?
Yeah, on the surface, I think it does look good. I think it'll be interesting to see if Pace comes out to the local media, which I don't think he's really done too much recently, just to talk a bit more about it. I think there was a bit of back and forth maybe a few months ago about that, where people were saying, why has he not come out and commented about the finances? But yeah, if something gets released on that, it'd be quite interesting to read.
Yeah, I heard a lot about that as well, about Alan Pace. And I guess what you can maybe say back to that is maybe that he's got a plan, and it looks like he has got a plan behind that. But you would always like to see good communication between the club and the local journalists, the local publishers. So, Matt, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think the age we're living in, everyone has access to information all the time, and people just expect to have that information and the questions answered immediately. So I think part of it is just him saying, like, look, don't worry, trust me. And I know that's a lot to give to someone who's quite new to the club, new to the area, he's not native to Burnley either. So far, it seems like he's held up his end of the bargain, and I would imagine he's going to have to make some kind of statement. And I believe in a few days they'll have to give more information on what that, as you say, settling of the charge, however they phrased it, actually means. But it can only really be positive. I think, given the income we've made this season on transfers and things, it does make sense for us to definitely probably kick a chunk of that back. I think we'll probably have remortgaged the ranch, if you will. It's probably not the right way to put it, but just to make sure our cash flow is fine going into the new season. So no, I think more things will come out for sure, but I'm confident they'll be positive.
We all hope so too, because next season looks like it may be especially the transfer window. It's shaping up like it could be the summer of a lifetime for Burnley Football Club. Speaking of signings, though, I wanted to talk about, because it seems like it's a really tough question, so I really like to ask this to Burnley fans, and that is, in your opinion, who do you think our signing of the season is? Because there's so many signings and there's so many great signings. And I've got my opinion, which I put online, but I want to hear off you two first. So, Matt, I'll go to you first about who you think our signing of the season is.
Honestly, I reckon you could make half a dozen claims to this, and none of them will be wrong. I'd probably say if I had to pick one, it would be Zaroury. I think he really clicked at the same time as the team. We had that kind of, I won't say it was a ropey start, but it certainly wasn't as polished as it is now. And he really did change games. Him and Benson as well. I'll probably put him ahead of Benson because he's been more involved in the team over the entire time he's been here. Benson's obviously been in and out, but I think he's definitely the sort of player that can definitely change a game. And considering what we paid for him, it's just ridiculous. It's a little bit, to me, reminds me of the Riyad Mahrez signing, which people might laugh at now, given how much, how well regarded he is in football. But when Leicester bought him, no one had heard of him either. And from what I hear, he wasn't even pulling up many trees in Belgium, although I might be confusing him with Benson. So, yeah, I think I'd say those two are my top two, but I'd probably say Zaroury just edges Benson.
He is an incredible talent. I think also one thing that helps Anas is the fact that when you think about this season, and you were correct that we did have quite a ropey start, that when you think about the moment that everything clicked for us, I think we can all kind of agree that Sunderland game, that comeback from halftime 2-0 to win 4-2, and that goal from Zaroury to the winning goal technically to make it 3-2, I think that is what what Burnley fans think of when you think about when everything felt right, when everything felt like, that's when we turned into the beast that we are. Danny, how do you feel about Zaroury being the signing of the season? Or do you have someone different?
Yeah, I've gone for someone different. It's really hard to pick. I think Benson is definitely worth a mention just in terms of the impact that he's had in games. We've noticed that him coming on has actually made a massive difference. But I think I went for Cullen just because I think he is such a grafter, and it was really noticeable for me when we played Ipswich the other night that he wasn't in the midfield. I think he just does all that like sort of dirty work, doesn't he? Really, he sort of goes under the radar a bit, and you don't appreciate him. But the way he just drops back to pick up the ball, finds the right pass, simple passes as well that he does. Nothing too complicated. But I think he's been outstanding. I mean, how much did we pay for him? Probably a couple of million. I
think it was 2.5. I think it was 2.5. I think.
I mean, that's crazy. I think he'll be able to transition to the Premier League pretty easily. To be honest, I think that's going to be a massive plus for us if we can get another midfielder in alongside him, because I think Cork's getting to that stage maybe where we need to get a new signing in. That'll be a great midfield to have.
Yeah, and it kind of makes you think about West Ham and thinking that they've let a really good player go. I completely agree with Josh Cullen. Each week he seems to be. He already won me over in that first game of the year against Huddersfield. He was immense that game. But each week I keep watching him, and I keep noticing him, especially at the late stage of the games, that he's still going 100%. And someone said that he's now our new Dean Marney, which I, of course, with my opinion, is I enjoy that connection. I would say Cullen is probably a better player, maybe technically, than Dean Marney, but Dean Marney had his traits, of course. But I really do love Josh Cullen. I've always said Jack Cork. I love Jack Cork. I love his composed, just everything about him. He's so experienced and he seems to calm everything down. But I think that we won't be the same team without Cullen in there week in, week out. And each week it seems to keep reminding me of that, how important he really is. Let's recap about the game on Saturday. It does feel like a long time ago, but I guess each game does come thick and fast now in the Championship, which I do really enjoy. I hope we never go up. I hope we can win the league and somehow stay, honestly, if that's possible. Preston, of course, I guess we all consider it a derby. Maybe if you're older, you may consider it more of a derby than others. But it didn't feel like that, did it? It felt like a under-21s game. I go to you, Danny, first. How do you recap in that game?
Yeah, I mean, going into it, I think, as you say, derbies are usually quite close games, really, aren't they? You expect it to be quite tense. We saw that in the Blackburn game. It was quite tense up till about half time. But I think, this was completely different. I mean, before the match, I was hearing from a lot of people saying, Preston could be quite a tough game. They've been really good away. We could expect them to give us a good game. But it was how I describe it is a complete performance. I think it felt a lot like the Huddersfield game at the start of the season, where we were just completely dominant for long periods of the game. I think the first 15 minutes before Teller's goal, we were sort of, it was a bit balanced, but took the chances when we needed to, which has been key, and just overall just looked fantastic. There's no other real way to describe it. I think even like set pieces now, before I was feeling a bit nervous about how well we could defend them, but with Ekdal in there as well, it seems easy work, to be honest.
I do agree with the fact that when we look back on all our games this year in terms of the perfect game, I do think that game on Saturday was the perfect game. Matt?
Yeah, and I think it really shows that the game we played them away early in the season was a lot tighter. We certainly hadn't hit our groove at that point. And they probably felt like, they gave us a really good game and we were nothing special. Since that game, we've obviously took it up a notch, and they're doing fine as well. Not as well as us, but they're certainly in and around that playoff mix, as half the league really is. I think it just showed the levels that we've climbed to since then, and we completely blew them away. There was no point in the game when we didn't look like we're in control, even at 3-0. I think, like you say, it looked like we were playing against our under-21s. We just had more than them in every area, more fitness, more technical ability. Tactically, I thought we were superb as well as we've done all season. And I don't think Preston are a bad team. One of the top teams in the division away. I think they might have won 3 or 4 or 4 or 5 before they came to the turf, which, again, I feel like we felt the same when we played Norwich and when we played Middlesbrough. I'm feeling the same before Watford, because it's just the way you are as a Burnley fan. But the way we've just gone about our business in the last 4 or 5 weeks, particularly of this long run, that was just like the culmination of it. And I hope we don't stop there, because if we play anywhere near that level against Watford, they haven't got a chance either.
I mean, this is an incredible side, and not only can we sound almost biased or naive to say that, but statistically, factually, we are, as we all know, we matched the modern Championship record since 2004 onwards with Aston Villa and Reading with 10 wins in a row. Not only that as well, matching the club's record of 10 wins in a row, which I think dates back to, I want to say 1911, or 1912, I think dates back. So it's, over 100 years now that we're now matching now, which is insane. So the game tomorrow is a record-breaking game. Not only can we break one record, but also 2. And I'm in the same camp with you, Matt, that I keep predicting that it's going to be a tight game. Maybe we can get a draw. Maybe we won't keep winning, because we keep winning. And football shouldn't be like this. You shouldn't just keep winning. That's just, especially in a Championship of all leagues. In a Championship, you shouldn't. We thought that going 23 undefeated was nuts, but this is going to another level now. So I'll go back to you, Matt. Do you think we could break that record on Tuesday?
I think we're going to go into the match as favourites. I think we're better than Watford. I don't think they've really found their kind of stride, I guess, under the current manager. I've seen a few games where they've been pretty poor and a few where they've been, really good as well. So I think even if their best team show up, it's going to take something pretty special for them to turn us over. So yeah, I think we'll win. I'm quietly very confident, or is it very quietly confident? One of the two.
Yeah. I mean, Watford right now entering the game, they've won 1 of their last 5 games. Of course, not won 1 in their last 4, and they've not even been able to beat Blackburn, which shows how bad they really must be, right, Danny?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we're just on that much of a roll that I don't think we'll be losing against Watford, especially at home as well. I think the home games have been, in terms of the support and stuff, I think that's been a massive driver as well. When you look back over the season, I think when we've got to the later stages of games, might have been drawing or whatever, but it's made a massive difference, hasn't it, to have the home fans really up for it as well compared to last season's atmosphere. I mean, it's huge.
I think I saw a stat that I think in terms of home games, we've lost 1 home game in a championship in I want to say 29 games or something. So our home record is ridiculous. Of course, our last home loss in the league was to Preston actually back in 15-16, which is, I don't even know. I was still working at McDonald's then in Colne. That's how long ago that was, man. And now I'm a father. So Jesus, a lot has happened since then, since the last time we lost at home in the championship. It's been an incredible ride to be a Burnley fan, especially for someone like me who's been, I guess, I've not seen proper lows, maybe in maybe what you two have experienced. I don't know how old you guys are exactly, but you may have seen us in the 3rd tier, or maybe not 4th tier. I guess it's not 4th tier for either you.
No, not that far back, no. My dad's certainly seen them down there, but we've had it really good, I think, at our age to see them where they are.
Yeah, and it feels like we should always appreciate what we're experiencing right now. So I got a question here, which may annoy some of the older Burnley fans, but is this the best Burnley side to watch ever? The best Burnley side by just experiencing the games, going to turf, going away games, being a Burnley fan. We've experienced a lot, European tours, 7 Premier League, another title-winning year. Even that second place year back in 13-14 was quite special because it felt like it was such an underdog story. No one expected us to do that. And Christ, the playoff final as well back in 2009. Where would you rank where we're at right now in terms of being a Burnley supporter?
I think I like to see the season pan out. Really, before I answer that, sorry for the politician's answer, but I think in terms of pure enjoyment, looking forward to the games, home, away, with my mates, with my family, I think I've never enjoyed or looked forward to it any more than I have right now. I started going on in 99, 2000. I barely remember it, but my dad forced a season ticket on me when I was 8 or 9. Bless him. So I have seen us in the 3rd division, although, most of the time I've been watching us, we've been on the up rather than the down. The down's been the Premier League relegation, so I still feel very fortunate. But certainly since I've been watching us, there was a grittiness that I loved about the Dyche era. Going to the last 5 minutes 0-0 against one of the big teams, knowing you could get a winner, and occasionally we did. And those wins and those points we picked up, they were so precious. They felt so special. But I think I've never seen us go into games this dominant and batter teams home and away. Go into away games. In fact, that Zaroury goal you mentioned at Sunderland made me smile because me and Danny were at that game together. And at half time, I said to him, "We're playing rubbish, as worse as we played all season, 2-0 down. Do you think we can win though? Do you reckon we could put 3 past these?" Absolutely, of course we can. And we ended up doing it. So I think that cavalier attitude, I've never got anywhere near it as a Burnley fan. And I'm just embracing it now because it's going to be a different story, I think, next season.
I love that story of you two actually being at Sunderland as well. I remember I was there as well, my brother and my mates, and literally I think we were on the other side of it, thinking that look, we're coming back down to earth here. Seriously, it's gonna be a tough one. We saw, I remember Barnes in the first half, and he got subbed off at half time, thinking that could be the last time we may see Barnes playing a Burnley shirt ever again, which shows how well he's done in terms of his resurgence recently. And Danny, I wanted to answer, of course, what I asked in terms of the best Burnley team to watch or the best experience to be a Burnley fan, but also we've seen a title-winning campaign under Dyche, and we're seeing potentially another one under Company, but they cannot be any further apart right now. In your opinion, which one do you kind of prefer?
I'm preferring this one at the minute. I think there's a few things that really stand out for me. I think the technical ability of the players that we've got is so vast. When you look at the quality that the likes of Zaroury, Benson, etc. have, and the actual depth of the squad as well. When you think about the Dyche side, I mean, I'm trying to remember how many players we had in that title-winning season, but I'm sure we've got more now than we did then. And also I think the togetherness of the squad, that is really noticeable. When you look at some of the posts on social media, I mean, that manager of the month that company won, he's obviously got all the staff there and all the players together. So it really does feel like one massive family almost, doesn't it, really? Which I really like, actually. It just gives off a good impression. So for me, I think this is the best side I've seen in my lifetime, certainly.
Which is crazy to see when you think about the fact that we actually finished 7th in Premier League. We finished 7th in Prem, and we're saying that this side in the Championship is probably the best side we've ever watched, which I don't know what that means, indeed, in terms of maybe how poor that league really was back in Prem in 17-18. Let's go on to Tuesday night then with Watford. In terms of the lineup, we can talk about strikers, because that is a weird one for me, because we've won all these games. We've won 10 in a row. However, the last 9 games in a row, we've not had a single striker score a goal. The last time a striker scored a goal in Burnley colours was Ashley Barnes against Blackburn, which was before the World Cup break. And since then, we've scored, I believe, 27 goals, including also the FA Cup game as well, with how many wins? 10 wins and 1 draw, with not one goal from a striker. Is this something to maybe be concerned about, or if anything, actually load up as something that's actually really incredible to show that we can score goals in so many different ways, in so many different roles and players, that we must be a nightmare for teams to try to actually stop? I'll go to you, Danny.
Yeah, I think is it 18 different goal scorers this season or something like that. So I think before the season started, company was maybe talking a bit about spreading the goals across the squad. So I think we've probably seen exactly what he wanted. I mean, we've obviously got 2 strikers who have been here for a while in Barnes and Rodriguez, but to have the amount of options that we've got is making a massive difference, I think. I don't know what you think, Matt.
It's almost the opposite of what we had with Dyche, and it's definitely style of football for me. Like under Dyche, we had target men who got on the end of crosses, got on the end of swerving passes, and it's very different. I think we play such like total football where we pin them back in their own half. We don't need a forward to be the focal point of our attack. It tends to come from the wings, and there's someone in the box to finish it. Whether it's someone like Brownhill, obviously Teller's been getting quite a few recently. So I think I'm certainly not concerned. I think we don't actually have. Obviously, Foster's come in, needs to get his kind of feet under the table, so to speak. Barnes has been playing excellently, but not so much as like a goal scorer. So I think I'm not concerned at all. I think it's something we'll probably need to change going to the Prem. We've signed Obafemi, which I think is looking very much forward to next season. But I think it's the way we're set up, the style of football we play lends itself to those goals from all over the place. Even Vitinho scoring a header against Norwich, who'd have thought that?
I mean, the crazy thing is about Vitinho, I realised this, that he scored 3 goals for Burnley, but yet all 3 are from headers. For a 5'9" right back is just mind-boggling to me. I do apologise for my video listeners. I was wrestling with my camera. I have no idea what went down, but we'll move on. And I want to talk about strikers, because we always kind of felt like, it was quite an obvious question in terms of who our best striker is, but it feels like we don't actually know now. Like, if you can pick our main striker to start, I don't know anymore. Will we say J-Rod? Will we say Barnes? Should we give Foster a go and start on Tuesday night? What would you start in terms of our striking force? Because it's a really tough question right now, Matt.
I'd definitely say Barnes. I think at the start of the season, when we gave Barnes that contract, I thought, going down a division, it might suit his play a little bit more. But it didn't. He had a pretty terrible start. I agree. Like at the Sunderland game, I was one of those fans thinking, maybe not saying outwardly, but thinking, if he doesn't play for us again, it might not be a bad thing. He's lost a step. But he's totally changed his game. He's playing in a totally different way. He's definitely embraced. You can see like when we score and he's celebrating every goal like he scored it. He doesn't care. It's a Burnley goal. It doesn't matter if it's him. But I think I'd definitely say Jay's done the opposite. He started off really well, and plenty of us were saying, oh, he could get 15, 20 with the right service at this level. He's got all that experience and guile, and he's just gone off the boil a little bit. So I'd say of those two, I'd say Barnes is definitely ahead. I'd certainly say Jay can get some minutes, and I'd maybe expect to see him in the cup if he's fit. With Foster, he needs to get up to speed. Same with Obafemi, who I think is still not quite fit yet. So I'd say it's working with Barnes. He's making a huge contribution. It might not be on the goal sheet, the score sheet, but even against Preston, got the assist. I think the third goal as well, he didn't get the assist, but he kind of forced it by physically pushing their defender back. So for me, it's 100% Barnes, to be honest.
Danny, also about that same question, but also we saw a bit of Obafemi on Saturday, and also we saw a bit more Foster, who we've seen for I think 4 games now, and people are starting to form opinions on him and how they judge him. What's your thoughts on Foster and Obafemi, and also about the same question of who do you start on Tuesday?
Yeah, I think on the 2 new signings, I think it's probably too early for us to pass judgment on those 2. I have seen people writing them off already, like you say, but too early. We need to give him a bit of time, get into the squad a bit more, and just get used to playing the Championship. I think Foster's going to be a really exciting watch. He seems to be quite direct from what I've seen, so quite strong as well. You could see on when he came on Saturday, he was sort of out-muscling their defenders, and he's got that turn of pace as well. So yeah, excited to see what he can do. But I think in terms of the striker options right now, as Matt says, we've got to go with Barnes because he's the one in form. You go with your players who are playing well, and another point that you mentioned was him being like almost like the father figure of the squad. Everybody seems to love him. He's got that experience. He knows what he's doing. So yeah, for me, he starts every week at the minute.
And while we're on topic of Barnes, in terms of Burnley legends, where would you put Barnes? Or is he a Burnley legend, of course? Like people may have different opinions.
He's up there, isn't he? I think.
If we were to rank them, you got like Ben Mee, you got Duffo, you got, I guess, Heaton. You say Heaton maybe in there? I don't know. Like, where would I mean? Depends how far you want to go back in terms of Burnley legends. I don't know. Where would you guys put him?
I'd say like Scott Arfield is probably my favourite player for the last 20 years. Him and Ben Mee. But I would probably put Barnes ahead of Arfield. He's obviously been here quite a lot longer now since Arfield left. And he's just been involved in so many huge moments. He was very much a scorer of either very good goals or very bad goals that were very meaningful. Sometimes those 2 things combined. So for me, I mean, it's hard to say more than me because, as the club captain, he was with us probably just a little bit longer than Barnes, maybe a season or 2 longer. He's gone now, so it's hard to give him the same kind of legend status. We'd all have loved to see him stay and retire as a Burnley player. Not that he would have fit the system. So I'd probably say, in my personal opinion, the last 20 years, only Ben Mee would be ahead of him in terms of that status. And part of the fact is that he's still here. I know some of that is down to other players just getting better and moving on, and we can't stop that. But I think it's such a huge positive environment to all the young players too. Doing his coaching badges. I'm not sure if he's going to be a great coach. I don't know. His personality maybe doesn't lend himself to that, but I could be very wrong, and I'd be happy to give him, a year or 2 just to learn his trade at the club. So, yeah, pretty high for me. Not quite statue level, but who knows?
Yeah, with maybe not statue level. If I don't know what you may have to do to get a statue of Burnley. I guess you got to win a trophy at least, an FA Cup or the like. With Danny, let's say we come to May, we've won the league. Ashley Barnes lifts the title, at home last year against Cardiff. What should we do with Ashley Barnes, in your opinion, or what do you think will happen actually?
Yeah, I was talking about this at the match on Saturday with some friends actually, but it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because if we do go up, will he start in the Premier League? And that obviously depends on who we sign in the summer as well. But is he a starter in the Premier League? I'm not sure he is. He might be a good bench option, but does he want to sit on the bench? He's coming to the end of his playing career, so does he want regular football for the last couple of years? I'm not sure. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'd be tempted to give him another year just to keep him around the group if he wants to, just to be that sort of role model. Because obviously he's been there and done that. He's been in the Premier League, and he'd be a massive asset for some of those younger players, to give them the experience. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what we should do with him.
I think Barnes is under right that he decides his own destiny, that if he wants to stay, he can stay. If he wants to get game time somewhere else, at a Huddersfield, for example, then he can. I think he's earned the right to have that choice. So I think what happens in the summer is going to be completely down to the choice of Barnes, I think. He is on, I think, a decent amount of wages compared to the rest of the team because, of course, Premier League wages. He earned the right, of course, back in 17-18. But what happens to him will be, I think, choice of Ashley himself. And one more question about strikers. I like this question because I think we have the same answer, but I don't know. In terms of in terms of Burnley strikers that we've ever seen, who would you put as the best ever Burnley striker? I'll go to you first, Danny.
That's a tough question. Personally, I really like Danny Ings. I thought he was a great, that Ings and Vokes partnership in that promotion season for me was one of the best I've seen. And I think technically, I think if he didn't get injured at Liverpool, he'd have really gone on to do great things. It's just a shame that really knocked him back. But in his time at Burnley, I really enjoyed just the pace and his skill, and the partnership was amazing for me.
Do you agree, Matt?
See, I kind of don't want to agree because you teed me up saying we all have the same opinion. I think of the last 20 years, I'm going to go out on a limb and say Sam Vokes, because I think he was a part of that great season where we got promoted and him and Ings were scoring, every week like it was child's play. He obviously stuck with us a bit longer than Ings, and that's no slight on Ings. I think it was the right time for him to move on. He did really well for himself with that move to Liverpool. But, Vokes was there when we got into Europe. He scored that great goal against Aberdeen. Scored some goals against Blackburn as well, if I can remember in my time. So he was never a prolific goal scorer, but he was kind of always there. And I can remember, right from Adi Akinbaye, Andy Gray, you could even put Ings in that as well. We always had a brilliant forward that always left, like they always outgrew the club, and that's what's going to happen. I was just going to
say that, bastard.
Sorry. Well, we sounds like we do have the same opinion in some regards. But Vokes was one Barnes as well, who's been there for a long enough period for me to, I always really happy when I see that he scored for Wickham, not so many this season. But for me, the longevity maybe puts him a bit ahead of Ings.
Yeah, I really like the shot of Sam Vokes. I think technically the best striker we've had is Danny Ings, but I love Vokesy just because of he was there for 13-14, that championship and promotion year, and then was there again for the next one, a title one back in 15-16, and when we needed him, he was there, and of course did a great job in terms of giving us some great moments in Premier League and in the Europa League as well. Of course, without his goal against Aberdeen, maybe it would have been a completely different game, and we may have never been able to get to Istanbul or get to Athens. So Sam Vokes definitely does deserve a great shot. But we've had some great strikers growing up. Of course, I'm a bit younger than both of you, but I remember I don't think it was ever good, but for some reason Kyle Lafferty's always in my head. Then it's Addy, of course, with Andy Gray. Then we got Pato. I love Pato because I don't think it was ever that good in terms of scoring goals, but I just remember him for being really, really he's kind of like a more like a pit bull version of Barnes, almost a bit more smaller, but still quite annoying from my memory. I still
Thompson was that was the duo, wasn't it?
Thompson. We even had, I swear we had Nugent, didn't we? Did we have Nugent back in Prem?
Yeah.
We had some. I don't know. I forgot that Nugent even came to us. Actually, to be fair. Actually, quick little question here because I thought it was Patterson right there. What is the best ever Burnley goal you've ever seen? Because I still really. I've never seen a goal from any club ever, any goal that resembles Pato's goal against Reading in a playoff semi-final. I've never seen a ball float from that level of distance in my entire life. So in terms of just pure, the moment of it, in the game that it was, because we didn't really expect to get to Wembley, never mind get promoted, because we were still seen as the underdogs, as we always have been, really, as Burnley fans. I still look back in that game and that goal with incredible just pleasure. Do you two share the same opinion, or do you guys have a different goal?
Yeah, I remember watching that one on TV. I wasn't actually there, but yeah, for me, I think Wade Elliott's goal at Wembley might just pip it in terms of, obviously it wasn't. I don't think it was quite as far out, but for the occasion to have scored a goal like that is just unbelievable.
Yeah,
especially for a player who you probably, as you said, Liam, he wasn't the most technically gifted player, but like how he had the audacity to just put his left foot through that and it sail in the top corner was remarkable, really.
That was his weaker foot, was it not? Was he right-footed?
Yeah.
That's stupid. That's so stupid.
Yeah, he could have hit that 1,000 times, and I bet 900 of those at least it would have gone into Rose Ed. But I would give two answers to this. I actually talked about this on another podcast. So the best goal I've seen, and this is kind of skewed by the fact I was there, but the Rodriguez goal at United that hit the bar and went in, just because it was an absolute thunderbolt, and to have that technique to hit it that hard in that corner, obviously similar to the Blake one in 09-10. So that's probably the best goal I've seen, partly because I wasn't there for the Blake one. I'd say the goal I've celebrated most is the J. Rodriguez third goal against Spurs in the League Cup.
Don't remind me of that guy.
Which took us to extra time. Obviously, at the time, I was celebrating like we'd gone through on away goals, but the feeling of that goal going in, it was an ugly goal. It was a goal mile scramble, I think, and Jay just prodded it in. But it just felt like this is our year, and obviously it didn't turn out to be in the league, but in the cup. In the league, it turned out fine in the end, but that's definitely the goal I've celebrated the hardest.
Yeah, I don't want to repeat too much of what we said on the last podcast, but that is the only game that I've ever cried at as a Burnley fan. I was 10. Okay, let me off. Okay, but I think it was Joe actually that from Turfcast said that he also cried too. And I think it was 21 at the time. So I guess I'm not too embarrassed by crying at age of 10. But yeah, that night that is like what, when I think of Burnley, I think of that. Do you agree, Danny?
Yeah, there's no shame in saying you cried at that game, because I'm pretty sure I was. If I wasn't on the verge of tears, I was nearly there. But yeah, it was heartbreaking, wasn't it? I can never forgive Roman Pavlyuchenko for scoring that goal. I don't know where he's disappeared to now. But,
it's all he ever did. Yeah.
All
he ever did.
I'm going to try to Google actually where is he right now. I need to know, because maybe we could have the last laugh. Okay, he ruined my childhood so much. How do you even spell his last name? Pav?
L-Y-U.
Oh, yeah, it's a really mad last name. Pavlyuc. Okay, he's still playing. He's 41. He's playing for FC Znamya and Ginks. No Ginks. In Russia, I think in the second tier. So, in my opinion, we win.
Yeah,
we've won the war against Roman Pavlyuchenko. So have that, mate. Have that, suck in it. Anyway, enough about petty balances with Russian strikers. Let's speak about the game tomorrow in terms of predictions. I kind of keep thinking that we're just gonna have like a tough game and that we may win it late or something, but I think I've just lost the will now at this stage to doubt this team. I'm willing to say I'm going to beat them 3-0 again, because we always seem to score 3 goals. What's your predictions and kind of how you see the game? Because there is some heat, because there is the chance to be record breakers, not just for club, but also for the league. Do you think that may play a factor?
I don't think so. The way the squad's reacted to other records to break, the win against Blackburn, coming up against some tough opponents recently, it seems like they all take it in the stride. It goes back to that togetherness you mentioned, Danny. So I think it pains me to ever predict a Burnley win, but if you're not going to do it off the back of 10 straight against a Watford team who I think the players are good. I don't know if they're necessarily being coached very well, given they've had so much turnover for the manager. So I'll say 3-1 I think maybe we let one in near the end.
Sam Lane in chat also says 3-1. What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, that was the first scoreline that came to my mind as well. I think they have got some danger men. Is it João Pedro that they've still got?
Yeah, he actually came back, I think, from injury last game, actually.
Yeah. So I think he's a potential threat, but apart from that, I think we'd be quite comfortable. I think I can't see us losing. We should beat them fairly easily.
The side is looking, like it is coming back together again. He had a lot of injuries. I know that Ismail Sarr, Evie starting, that Kamara, who got red card against us, who did quite well against Spence in that game, is also still playing. Bachmann, who I think is quite a good keeper, is still there, who, without him, we probably should have got a result against Watford back at Vicarage Road. And it feels like a decade ago now, those first couple of games earlier in the year, because we're still playing, like the likes of Joe Costello, he was still starting for us back then, and the team was so. I think we looked at our bench, and our bench for that first game against Huddersfield was just mental. It was some sight. We've got, of course, a looming sort of record that we're chasing towards. Of course, people may say that, I spoke to a Preston fan actually, and he said to me, saying that, isn't it like boring for you now because you just win each game, so no games mean anything? And I said no, because we've got 106 points. We've got that to chase towards, because now is the best time than ever to keep going for that record, because we've got a certain man in Vincent Kompany who's been there. He's done many incredible things in the world of football. And the main concern that people may have is, we may get promoted fast, but maybe we'll slow down and be a bit complacent. Do you see Vincent Kompany letting the lads get complacent?
I don't see it. He obviously hasn't really addressed it, has he, in his press conferences? I think he's been asked the question a few times, but I think every time it's kind of like we're focusing on the next game. But I was looking down the fixture list and I was kind of like, where are the potential slip-ups coming up? I think Luton will be a tough game. I think that might be a big test because they seem to be playing well. They're quite direct from what I can see. And there were a couple of us that I looked at. I think it was Borough that we got to play away, and Sheffield United at home as well. Obviously, it'll be a massive game. But apart from those three, and I think we can afford to lose 3 potentially, can't we? To not break the record.
Yeah. So I think the maths is if we win each game, we get to 116 points. So we can afford to drop 9 points, which is 3 losses or 4 draws, essentially, or 2 draws and 1 loss. You do the maths, but yeah, it's still quite slim margins considering we've lost 1 in our last, how is it now, like 17, 16 games. If we match the form that we've had in the last 16 games, we'll hit it, in the next 16. Matt, do you? I do look at the potential Millwall away game, Luton away. I'm more concerned about those games really than anything else, for whatever reason. If we come out of Millwall away and Luton away, still winning both those games, and also with a win tomorrow night, I think we'll do it. Do you have any different opinions?
Yeah, I think there's no easy games, which sounds daft when we've won 10 in a row. But at this level, any team, whether the bottom of the league, whether they're Sheffield United, they can certainly give us a game, especially away from home, like you said. But I think we've got such good depth as well. Like, we've shown that depth a lot of the time this season. I think I was a bit wary of the Ipswich, both fixtures really, where I thought we just didn't have that bite in midfield. But I do think that the way we play, it's ingrained in all the players, and we can make some quite handy substitutions, whether it's before the game or during the game, to just put players straight into that slot. For me, the problem is we've won 10 in a row, which is equaling that record. I'm just looking at the table now. If we win 10 more in a row, that's 20 in a row, which would double the last record, which would be completely ridiculous and insane. It should and would probably never happen. If we do that, then we still need to win another 3 and I think get another point. So I don't know, when you say it like that, it sounds, I guess the odd draw here or there is not going to hurt too much, but I think it's not going. If we don't do it, it won't be because the players have taken the foot off the gas. It will just be because it is so difficult to do. And to be honest, if we can do it or match it, I can't recall that season too well when Reading did it. They obviously had a fantastic squad that ended up doing quite well in the Prem for a season or two. But looking at that headline you read at the start of the podcast about the state of the club, the fact that companies come in, had to rip apart everything, buy loads of players who've never played in England before, and get anywhere near promotion, let alone win the league at a canter potentially. Obviously, it's not over yet, and break these records is just phenomenal. So I'm going to err on the side of caution and say it's probably less likely than it is likely, but you can never write this team off.
Oh yeah, you absolutely cannot write this team off whatsoever. And I do believe that under Vincent Kompany, if anyone can keep a team motivated for a prolonged length of time, especially after already going up, I think it is him. I put out a poll earlier today about the public. I got 10,600 votes, and it was on my Twitter, which maybe a bit Burnley kind of heavy, but I think it's still a minority because I guess I've got quite a lot of neutral people that follow me. It's 55.3%. People that think, yes, we will beat the record. So it's still relatively 50-50, but it is going to be a tight one. And I do think that it is, as of right now, still less likely than it is likely. However, if we do come out of Millwall and Luton away, really the only real tough games is Borough away and Sheffield United at home, you would say. And we played them, I believe, back to back. I need to double check it, but I think we played them within...
Yeah,
3 days of each other on the 7th and then on the 10th of April, which that'd be a mental week. And I think in terms of mental weeks, there is still the hope of us getting promoted at Blackburn. That is still a possibility. I think we're going to be 25 points clear by then, in which right now, mathematically, it's currently 19 points clear to Luton because Borough have a game in hand. They have a game on us, actually. So if we go to Blackburn and we get promoted there, what are you going to do that night?
I think everyone will be tearing the town up, won't they? I think the Lancs police won't know what to do with themselves, will they?
Oh, bro.
It's going to be some scene in Blackburn just after the game, but also in Burnley. And you just know as well that they don't have as much to play for as us. Obviously, you never know, they could turn it around and still finish in the playoffs. But I think they've definitely peaked and they've been found out a little bit. So all they can really hope to achieve is not even stopping us going up, or even them necessarily going up, but just stopping us doing it on their turf. That would be the icing on what is already a very large butterfield cake. So I can only hope that happens. But long way to go yet for sure.
I just want to look at the chat here that's been imparted. So thank you all so much for being here as well. If you are new here to the channel, then feel free and subscribe. And if you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, then please make sure to follow as well. Your support is incredible. I think we've gained 300 subs on YouTube in the last 3 days, which means a lot, man. So looking at some predictions, Sam Lane 3-1 Burnley, Joel Flanagan 2-0 Burnley, Dale Husband 3-0 Burnley as well. And a few little comments here as well saying that Dale thinks that Muric is crucial to us reaching the points record, which, just want to have a little highlight on Pete Muric here. The best CDM I've ever seen, honestly. What? I don't know if we were just taking the piss here with Preston, seeing how far he was. There was some clips that they panned towards our third of the pitch, and I couldn't even see where Muric was. He wasn't even on the screen. He was at the corner flag or something.
Yeah, there was one clip, wasn't there, where I think, was it Bayer had the ball and had run back towards the goal, and he was off to the left, wasn't he, or something? But literally a sweeper keeper. It's incredible. And he's doing sort of I almost thought he was going to do flick ups with the ball at one point. He was
just stop doing keepy ups, yeah.
But yeah, you can really see the difference, which I think Dale's put in the chat. But the difference between obviously Peacock Farrell, who to be fair to him hasn't really done anything wrong, but in terms of his distribution, Muric is just streaks ahead. I think he's at the stage now where he's not just playing short passes, he's playing long passes as well, and he just looks really comfortable. He's sort of grown into the side, hasn't he, over the season, really?
Yeah, I don't even think it's fair to say that he's even a sweeper keeper at this stage. He's something else. I think when you play Football Manager, it's a different role. It's just a Muric role because it's obscene. Tinger in the chat also saying that Sheffield United will be a tough game, and back in November we were bullied, and that we've come on leaps and bounds. And earlier I was listening to the podcast of the Second Tier podcast, actually, who I do listen to quite a lot. And I listened back to that episode, and that they felt like it was just a bump in the road, that they think that we can take that and really learn from it. And I remember looking back on Vincent's press conference or interview, post-match comments after the game, and speaking in a very calm way that, yeah, we still have like quite a young team and they're going to learn from it. And it may sound like it's easy to say that, with hindsight, thinking, oh, what a genius. But I truly think that game really has like showed us a lesson in terms of what to look out for and how to be a team in a full game and control game. Because other than maybe Coventry at home, I don't think that I felt that we were going to not win a game. Maybe also Stoke, because that was a real like Burnley shithouse 1-0 win, which I really did enjoy. How do you feel like we've come from that Sheffield United game?
I think you mentioned, Danny, like to be honest, the Achilles heel for Sheffield United. You're right, we were bullied. Set pieces in particular totally killed us. And as much as like we can give Muric all that praise for being brilliant at his feet, and he certainly got a lot better at playing goalkeeper, stopping them from scoring. He was pretty poor in that game, and I think he's got a lot better at commanding his area. Still not a strength, but I think we've definitely improved our set piece defense for sure. You're right about Ekdal. I think it's his presence, but he's also a good organizer, probably better than Bayer in that regard, with a bit more experience. So I think I would like to say I've not watched a lot of Sheffield United since, but we've certainly got better in the areas that I thought they exploited. It's just a case of if we can continue to do what we did against them, because going forward against them, we looked dangerous. But the problem was by the time, we got to the second half, halfway through it, the game was already gone. So we didn't really have a chance to come back.
I mean, I really cannot wait to face them again, because I really think it'd be a very interesting contrast potentially in that day. And hopefully by then we're already up and maybe can have a real point to prove and can really show our dominance that day. Let's give our predictions for the game for tomorrow. So I'll go to you, Danny, first in terms of match prediction and also goal scorer.
I am going to go for 3-1. I think Teller will keep on his goal scoring. I reckon he might get another 2. That's a bold prediction. And I reckon we might have a goal from Zarori, because I think he looked pretty good first half on Saturday, and he faded a little bit second half. But I think he seems to be keeping up a bit of consistent goal scoring. So I'll go with him as well.
So 3-1, 2 for Teller and 1 for Zaruri. Matt?
I'm going to have to say 3-1 as well. You stole my score there, Danny, but that means I have to mix up the goal scorers. So I'm going to say Muric. No, not really. I'm going to say I think Barnes is going to score. We talked about no forwards scoring, so it's time for Barnes to break that duck. I'll probably stick a Zaruri one in there and maybe a Brownhill goal. He's not scored for a while either.
Okay. For the sake of not sounding like we're saying the same thing, I'm gonna say 2-0 here, not 3. Just to make it sound like in case we actually do lose and this gets clipped up, at least I'm the one that may get a bit less shit from Watford fans. So I'll say 2. I also want to say that Barnes will score. I really cannot wait to see him celebrate, because he really does deserve that, and to do it at turf would be great to see. And I'll say Zaruri as well. I think he seems to always score once every 4 games, so I think he's due one as well. So we've got 2-0, 3-1, and 3-1 as well. I'd like to ask each guest that comes on a kind of nostalgia-based question here. And I was speaking to some Burnley fans earlier today, and I really want to get both of your opinions on this. So I got technically 2, but in 1. So the best ever Burnley shirt and the worst ever Burnley shirt. So which one is older of you two, may I ask?
I don't know, Danny.
28.
Oh, so. Me then. I'm 31.
I'll go to Matt then first. I thought that's a fair way to judge who I go to first. So Matt, what is your best and worst ever Burnley shirt?
I think I tweeted about this on the Manchester Clarets Twitter as well, at MCR Clarets, if you're doing plugs. And if you're not, then
of course.
It's live. But yeah, I tweeted about this. The silver tinfoil, you could cook a turkey in it shirt that I remember famously we wore it against United away. I think we lost that one 2-1, one evening game before Ings left. So that for me is a bit of a horror show. To be fair, when the players wore it looked bad, but I saw a few fans wearing it, and yeah, it looks a lot worse on non-athletic, typical Burnley fans, let's say. Not to be
I
sizes.
would like to highlight as well. I actually think that shirt was almost so bad that it's almost now become good with hindsight.
Yeah.
That you look at it and it's
Yeah.
almost like a collector's item now. Like I've actually gone out my way to try to find that shirt online on eBay or classic football shirts, and I can't seem to find it. I now want to own that shirt because it is like a sort of cultural shirt now for us now. So that's your worst one. What's your best one? Oh, was that your best one?
No, that was the worst one. I think
Are
you're
you sure
right.
it's not best?
Well, I mean, no, I'm pretty sure.
He's
It
got
would
a few in
definitely
his
be-
drawer at home, but we just don't know about it.
Yeah, I'll get one out if you like. I think best.
Please do sell it to me.
Well, I'll contact you after, mate. I'll send you a DM on Twitter. I think my favourite one is going to be the 09-10 one, the 1960 title winning throwback. The actual shirt, as in the production of it, was awful. It was one of the area ones, had no breathability. It was really stiff, and it was horrible to wear other than on the turf. But in terms of design, I mean, it's a throwback to the 60s one, so it's just really simple, really clean. I thought the sponsor was good as well, although I don't know what Cook were doing because they just put Cook on the shirt and no one knew what they were. It might have been Andy Cook had sponsored himself, but pretty poor advertising if you ask me. But that'd be my favourite.
Was Cook supposed to be? You may know, Danny. What? It's like an
Oils.
oil thing.
Was it oils? Yeah, I think it was. Was it? It was a local company as well, wasn't it? They're sort of nearby.
They certainly could have done a better job of advertising what they actually did. But yeah.
Yeah, I remember that shirt, and I think it was the badge specifically that after a length of time just crumpled up for whatever reason. I remember because I had that shirt growing up, and maybe I played too much football in it, as a child, but yeah, I remember that having a very poor condition over time. Danny, worst and best ever Burnley shirt.
You kind of stole mine there, Matt. The silver one is definitely the worst, 100% that I can remember. The Cook one was really nice. I really like the hoop socks as well with that. So when it was the full kit, that looked really good. I think just to be a bit different, I'd probably say this season's shirt is probably the best that I've actually bought it as well. I don't buy a shirt every year, which that sort of tells you how good it is. But yeah, I love it. I think it's such a nice change not to have a betting sponsor on it. The stuff that classic football shirts have been doing as well has been really great from what I can see. So I really like this season's kit. The third kit is also really nice. It's really grown on me the more we've worn it. So it helps that we've been winning in it, I think. But yeah, I like that one too.
That's a good shout. And definitely not because we're winning each game of it as well. That's definitely that definitely doesn't help whatsoever.
No.
For my worst shirt, maybe I'm cheating because it's not really due to the design of it, but maybe because of the meaning and what it means to me. But I'm referring back to the 16, 17, and I think also at one point 17, 18 as well, third shirt, that blue. So it was a blue version of it. So in 16-17, we won our only away game in that yellow and claret shirt, Andre Gray at Crystal Palace. But in that same year, we also had a third shirt that was a blue one that we played at West Ham away, remember, and Sunderland twice that we both drew 0-0. I just remember having no happiness and no excitement, no moments that I remember that shirt. And I think we played in it quite a few times as well. And I just hate it when I look at it. I actually I remember I actually had that shirt in person. I actually bought it, and I think I just gave it away to an ex of mine because I just wanted to get rid of it. I just gave it to her. I was like, "Yeah, I don't care. You can have it." And then yeah, that's just and I never do that for shirts. I make sure I collect all of them, but I hate that shirt for its meaning. So that's mine. And then for my best ever shirt, maybe because it holds a place in my heart nostalgia wise, but I always look back to 05, 06. It was a Hunters Burnley shirt. And I don't know why. Maybe it was some sort of weird, different shade of claret we used that year, but it pops out to me. Maybe because I was also, when I was 8 then, I was really getting into Burnley and going to turf much more often. I remember James O'Connor, Andy Gray, Adi Akinbaye, all the boys wearing it back in those days. So when I think of Burnley, I always think of that shirt. So that's it's not really a really nice, it's a nice looking shirt, but not design wise. It's more in terms of, mine's much more of an emotional meaning behind it. So maybe I'm cheating it, but that's my best and worst ever Burnley shirts. Looking at chat here, Tinger said 1994 yellow and black strapped away shirt, which is a banger. I think I said that in a previous podcast, but I really wish that we can really resemble that B more. I like the B part of Burnley, Bertie being everything. I think we don't really show that off enough. And I got fond memories of a grey one with a VK sponsor from Dale Husband. I'm actually looking at it right now, actually, with long sleeves. That's an interesting shout, to be fair. I think it's all 4 or 5, maybe, actually. But I appreciate you guys coming on. It's been a fantastic podcast and a great one talking to both of you two about some great talking points about record-breaking Clarets, and we can keep saying that hopefully after Tuesday as well, and as well about the financial situation at the club right now. So I'll go to you, Matt. Where can the great people of Burnley find you?
Yeah, so I'm here tonight representing the Manchester Clarets. So we're just a bunch of Manchester-based Burnley fans. There's about 40 or 50 of us in the group. So we spend a lot of time going to home games, going to away games, meeting up, sharing fuel and things like that. So if you're in Manchester and you need to find us, we're on Twitter at MCR Clarets, all one word. And Danny's actually part of the Manchester Clarets. So as I said before the show started, we're outnumbering you already tonight. We're everywhere.
I actually wanted to ask you about that as well, about the Manchester Clarets Supporters group, actually, because like, are you actually like based like born in Manchester, and like what's the sort of, because Manchester isn't too far away from Burnley, so I kind of felt like, is there a need for that because they're kind of close enough, or what's the kind of dynamic in your supporters group?
There's a mix. I think the majority of us are from the Burnley area who've moved to Manchester for various reasons, myself included. But I moved to Manchester about 8 years ago, bumped into a few other Burnley fans. As most Burnley fans are, it's one of the main things about your personality, so you can't help talking to people about it. And the surprise you get when you meet another Burnley fan in a busy pub in Manchester that's usually full of red and blue. It's just kind of snowballed from there, really. So the majority of us, I'd say, are from Burnley originally or the surrounding areas. There'll probably be a few native Mancs as well, but no, I think most of us are from Burnley. It's just good fortune, really, that we've bumped into each other and made a little community out of it.
Oh, it's fantastic that both of you actually are on it, that you guys already had good knowledge of each other. And maybe you can answer this one for me, that when I went to Newcastle for uni, when people ask me where I'm from, if I say I'm from Burnley, they have no idea where it is on the map. If they maybe are a football fan, they may know Burnley Football Club, but not actually on the map where they are. So when I was at uni, I always say, where from Burnley? And they say, where is that? I said, okay, I'm from Manchester. I just always say from Manchester to make it easier, because they know where Manchester is, but don't know where Burnley is. Is that something that you relate to?
Yeah, 100%. And then inevitably, the odd person you would say you're from Manchester, they'd say, oh, what part? And I said, well, I'm not actually, but it's the nearest thing that you'd recognise. And then typically those people would know about Burnley. So yeah, obviously now it's a bit different because I'm, I suppose, from Manchester now, but originally from the Burnley area.
And Danny as well, I don't want you to be left out. Of course, where can the great people of Burnley find you? And also, what's your kind of like your quick little upbringing about the Clarets?
Yeah, so I was born in Burnley as well, and I live in Bury at the moment. But so I work in the city centre, which is why I sort of went for the Manchester Clarets, because it's if we've got games that are on TV, we can go and watch them in the pub or whatever together. But my upbringing, I've sort of, it's been, I think I started watching Burnley when I was 7, so it's been a while now. But enjoying the ride. You can find me on Twitter at I think it's at Danny_Ward94. I always forget my handle, but tweet usually after every match. Some opinions, you might agree with them, might disagree with them, but yeah.
I think it's hard to disagree with much right now, because I think everyone's just very happy of the situation. I'm from Barrowford, so people. I remember someone had a conspiracy saying that like I'm not actually from Burnley because of my voice. Apparently, they thought I was from like Yorkshire, but I get paid because when I say Burnley with like a Y, but people from Burnley say like Burnley, like le, like that sound. I don't know. People have their own conspiracy sometimes, but that's maybe for some people that wonder behind my voice. That's why I guess Barrowford's maybe quite posh. It's like a 7-8 minute drive away from Burnley, but apparently it's miles away in terms of voice for some reason. But honestly, I've really enjoyed talking to both of you. And of course, for any people listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, of course, feel free and drop a follow. Thank you all so much for the support. And also on YouTube, we are doing also like previews and match reactions as well alongside the podcast work. And I really want to try and, give you as much as I can. Because if I can't make content about Burnley now, when am I meant to? So Danny, Matt, thank you both so much for coming on, and hopefully tomorrow's gonna be a great game for us, right?
Yeah, very
Can't wait.
optimistic.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for listening to this podcast, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Peace out.